know if this is going to go live, but that's no big deal. Let's see anyway. All right, you ready? Yes. What's going on, everybody? We are back with another episode of The Jungle. Today, I have with me Lamarr Atchison. So, Lamarr Atchison is the re-entry director for South Street. He is the founder and program director for Strategic Intervention for Youth in Crisis. He's a chapter developer for. Obviously, you guys know we're kind of in this new season where I have not only people that have been incarcerated, but people that haven't. Lamarr's got a pretty sweet story. He's definitely been through the ringer, come out shining. Obviously, going through his bio, that's the tip of the iceberg of what Lamarr's got his hands into. So Lamarr, usually starting off, I mean, we talk about what your life is like growing up. So why don't you get into maybe youth, childhood, just touch on it a little bit, give everybody an idea of what your childhood was like.
Okay. So I was born in Akron. My mother was 17. My father was 18. I think they were just graduating from high school. I grew up in what's called the V, the Valley. So I'm from the V. I think around the time I was born, my mom enrolled in college in Arizona. So we moved out to Arizona. I think this was like the tip of my father's addiction.
Okay.
So when we moved to Arizona, my father was in this addiction. We've been in Arizona for my first probably 4 years of life, 4 to 5 years of life. We had to leave. My mom had to suddenly drop out of college because, of course, my dad, sold her wedding ring and broke into the neighbor's house and stole all the Christmas stuff. So we had to.
So there was a bit of a
So we had to, going back to Akron. So when we came back to Akron, I was about 5 or 6. So we came back to Lane School down in the Valley before it closed. And I think we stayed here for another 2 years, and then we moved to North Carolina. You'll see the thing that my mom was like a gypsy. So once something hit on, we move around. So we moved down to North Carolina, I think another 2 to 3 years. Came back to Ohio when I was around in the third grade, going into the 4th grade. I come from a family of educators and addicts. So I had this weird upbringing. My mom was young, so I think when my mom got into like her early 20s, she dated some of the big dope boys around Akron. I say their names, people would know who they are. Lived in after-hours spots. So kind of just like good mother, dad, 9 numbers, this kind of dynamic that took place. My mother's family was very into education. My aunts and them ran daycares and taught schools. Just talking about my father.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so my father had 9 numbers before he was killed. So that's kind of like I grew up in that ethic. I think when I moved back to Akron, around that time, that's when I started stealing. My father was crazy. My father was a booster. That's how he fed his habit.
Yeah.
So he was, he was the one to come in the hood and dress all the kids and dress all the families for the summertime. That was him come with the bags of clothes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my pops was a booster. So I, just started. I think initially how I started stealing, which was crazy, is my aunt sold weed. And so my aunt, she had this little punch bowl that she would keep her money in. So I would go in and take about $5 and go down and buy all the young, all the cookies and candy. Going I'm out of the
Flash and spending.
So, I was about kindergarten at the time. So I started young with the kind of, but now that I can see it as an adult, manipulation and deception and theory and all that stuff that started young for me. I had my first run-in with the police at about 9.
Dude, let me stop you real quick. Now, obviously, you came from a family of addicts, and your dad was a booster. But this is something because I got locked up for a burglary, so I was a thief too. You know what I mean? Do you think that's genetic? Do you think that there's like a genetic predisposition to people having that kind of trait? Because the reason I ask is I've had these conversations with people, and I almost feel like I can look back on my life from an early age, and I was stealing shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been something. It's almost like it's like this entitlement thing. Like I'm just gonna take what I want. You know what I mean? But I remember having that from an early age. That's been like a big thing that I had to, especially when I was a drug addict. That's how I supported my habit.
Right.
Was booting doors in. After coming home, there was always that mentality still in my head rolling around. Like, well, I could just take it. I'm not gonna worry about it. Do you think that's like?
You know what? I never thought about it. I just knew it was.
Yeah.
Right? It was just something. So that does sound like a predisposition, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's genetically passed down because it wasn't like I watched with somewhere with my pops or seeing somebody stealing, like, oh, that's the thing to do.
Yeah.
It just was something that I did that I can see now as a 50-year-old man. I can remember a lot of things of my childhood because when you go, as you know, when you go in prison, all you got, especially during the length of time, is your memories.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't got nothing else because you're not building new memories.
No, you're
So you live, if you do 20 years of your life is, if you don't move around different prisons, somebody done heard your same story 30 times already. So that's all you got. But what you're creating in there at the present time. And so I can remember things that I was doing from a young person vividly. People like, how? So I tell people, it was all I had, man. It gave me to the streets. So when I think about stealing and stuff, it was just something that just came.
Yeah.
And, we just did it. So it could be a predisposition.
Yeah, I mean that's how I've always kind of looked at it. I don't know where I got it from. I mean they're usually office a booster.
Yeah.
I mean my dad, he owned businesses, worked for OGA, like you know what I mean? So it wasn't a learned trait for me.
Right.
But I remember at a young age, I was at my cousin's house and they had these little ass like Legos or some shit. And it was like a little action figure. I played with it the whole time I was there and I ended up taking it home. Man, I was only like 6 years old. I get home, my mom found it and they were calling. My aunts called my mom and was like, hey, did Chris maybe like walk off with this? And I'd taken it. I knew I took it. I have like several instances. Never grew up like around anybody stealing shit. And so I've always wondered if maybe it was like it was like some sort of like weird genetic predisposition or it's weird. It'd be something cool to look into.
Yeah, I never thought of it. And then once you come of age, you realize like, I think everybody around me, even though my aunt was hustling so she could get through college and she became a hell of another mother. I call her Monties.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She was my other mom, and worked at Mont Bell. She worked for them when it was Mont Bell.
Oh, okay.
All the way until it was AT&T. She worked for them for like 30-some years. We had out of that bunch of my dad, his side, most of them were addicts, with the exception of my one auntie. You know what I mean? But she hustled.
Yeah.
And I remember,
clipping
her, and that's kind of how I started. Like clipping little money from there, and then stealing little candy from out the stores. And as you get bolder and bigger, it's going into KBs up in Rolling Acres, it's going to Children's Palace, it's still the GI Joes and the Heat Men and all that good, And I like I said, I had my first run in at 9. Gold circles up on Romick Road, trying to steal Houdini. Open sesame, like I can remember it vividly. Raising Hell had just come out by Run DMC. I remember my cousin telling me, I just got it. They sweet. But he hadn't got it. He wanted to see if I was going to be able to tribute. He was older than me.
So how old were you in this accident?
About 9.
How old was he?
I think Kev should have been about 11.
Okay.
11, 12. Yeah, so, we used to run and, steal together and stuff. So that kind of really kind of started the path. And like I said, my mom was transit. So we would live here, live there, live here. We lived on every side. I think for the short time I was in Akron, I probably went to 5 schools. Just how I was.
So what was the first? So so we talked about obviously your first run-in with the law. What was your first experience with like what was your when you? I mean, you're obviously an addict or an alcoholic. What was your drug of choice? What got you started on that path?
So what's crazy is I was more into athletics and street stuff
Okay.
initially. So I didn't really get into getting into drugs till I got into the penitentiary.
Oh, okay.
Right. No, I didn't even really smoke. I've been drunk a few times.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, I was serious about the streets. So it was like, how the street stuff work, gang stuff. I was into that kind of thing. When I got into the penitentiary, it was back when I went in the early 90s, it was T's and B's and all the different vines and different drugs like that was going around. So, some old school dudes, they was popping pills and got in with some dudes. And
those were back in the day when you could probably. So where were you incarcerated at?
I started in Marion.
In Marion. So back in the day, from my understanding, now obviously that was a little before my time. You used to be able to get clothes boxes in there.
Yes.
The people, but it was from
food boxes, clothes
your family to bring up shit, right?
Not when I came in.
Okay.
Now when my father was incorporated, we used to take picnic baskets of food.
I didn't even put that in. I didn't even date you like that.
Oh no, that's good. No. The system because a lot of people don't know because they haven't been in the system when certain things were going on. They just hear about it.
Well, that was on the block. And I had some old school guys in there.
They're telling
back and bullshit, and they used to talk about how that's how they would get like their dope and everything else.
Yeah, food boxes, we seal. For a minute, dudes was doing the Snicker bars where you put the bars and you hollow it out. You put the stuff in. It was all kinds of trades. Like some dudes would do the can resealers.
Yeah. So
sometimes you would get some weed. It's like mustard.
Yeah.
Because come in the food box and the mustard. You know what I mean? So dudes always finding me. They hollow the shoes out, trade the shoes on a visit. So it was always ways, and of course, staff.
Yeah.
So it was always ways to get but that's really where I got into my addiction and recognizing that I had an addictive personality.
Yeah.
Which leads to more than being incarcerated more than one time.
Yeah.
Like being in that pattern of that's part of an addiction also. You know what I mean? But that doing the pills helped me recognize that I had an addictive behavior. That means once I start, I'm going.
Yeah.
No matter what I get into. And so I got on these pills that we were on the bus stops. And what they did was they were, I want to say they were some kind of, not diabetic, but blood pressure type pills. So it would have you like nod out almost like if you was on opioids. So that was what I was doing for a while in the joint until the crazy part of it is like in prison, especially if you start to participate in the politics. The chances of your head being split, your life to increase more and more and more. So as you get heavier in the politics, you got to be aware of what's going on.
Yep.
And I was at that place where I was nodding out at the gambling table. I'm sitting in the chow hall nodding out. I'm leaving. It's just that I had a good conglomerate of brothers. You know what I mean? That made sure that if I fall asleep in the chow, ain't nobody gonna bust my head because I got some.
Right.
I got some, pool, got some dudes. They gonna make sure I'm straight. And it was the one last time I can remember it like it was yesterday. I'm in the chow, nodded out. It's a chicken Sunday, Everybody went to chow. And I'm in there, nod out, chow over with. And then man, they ain't really mess with you, dude. Sitting there to the movement with camp out movement. Excuse me. So I'm sitting in there and I'm nodded out, child over with. They watch the table on my homies like, oh, everybody going back to the blocks, bro. I'm like that. I'm walking back. But a Muslim brother named Big Willie pulled down on me. And he said, man, you one of the young leaders down here, man. And every time I see you, like, nah. He said, I think the next time I see you like that, I'm gonna see what your hands like. He said, because you got too much potential.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna press you out this thing, or you gonna get thrown through the wolves. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
I just stood back, man. That was the last time I took a pill, got high.
So that was your sober day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was like it was this interesting time.
So how old were you at that point?
At that time, I was 20.
20? Okay.
20. So I had been in the prison system for like 3 years.
Okay. What was the term on your first bid?
10 to 25 with a 3-year gun spec.
And what was that for?
Manslaughter.
Manslaughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went in for voluntary manslaughter. Start off with, as you already know, initially charged with aggravated murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you, real quick, not to hot topics, because we got a little bit ahead of where I was going with the whole prison talk. Why don't you tell everybody real quick what happened with all that?
Look, as far as how much time I did or how I so the crazy part is about that whole situation is that I was living in Georgia. My father, for the first time ever, came out of the prison system and wanted to see his son. So I'm living in Georgia, going to high school down in Georgia. It's the summertime. My dad would finish the city down there. So at the same time, I'm dealing with some dudes from Miami. I'm selling weed, a little bit of crack. I'm really a stick-up boy, but I'm selling weed down here in Georgia, messing with these Miami boys. I ended up booking them for a couple pounds and go.
Oh, I can't tell you how we go. I probably still owe a lot of money to you, bro.
So I signed up to Ohio, and when I get to Ohio, I'm in Ohio with this mentality. I just come out the juvenile system, was living in Georgia. I'm still on what I'm on. So when I get to Ohio, I've already stabbed a couple people. I'd already, violence had already perpetuated in my life to a point where I just did 2.5 years in juvenile for stabbing a guy up. So I already was in that place. I just hadn't got to the point where I was just outright just shooting dudes. I was more like, I get up on you and stick you up and all that. And so when I got to Ohio, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get more into the guns. And so I think the first time I got into an incident was shooting up on the hill, going to a party, shoot a dude at the party, don't let come of it. So now you just feeling like, hey, with this thing, yeah. So there was something going on in the hood where a dude had an incident with somebody in our hood, from our hood, about some money, and he started pressing the hood. He running through the hood, pressing the hood. He even shook a couple of the homies down, caught him slipping. He shaking the hood, so we happened to run across it. And it turned into a big argument. Me and dude, I really actually at the time was gonna stay out of it. It was something I ain't have no parts in. He ain't book me, can't book me. I ain't worried about it. I'm in that place. And for some reason, dude wanted to keep directing it to me. And so he brought it to me the first time, and I said, hey, listen, bro. I said, the next time when you bring something to me, like far as in this little feud you having with these people right here, like I'm gonna kill you. It ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I'm gonna kill. So he's back arguing with the original people he arguing, but I'm still standing there because now in my head, because I'm already into being violent.
So now you're already thinking about how you're going to finish it.
I'm going to finish it.
Yeah.
I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to end this. But I could see that he was young. I'm with 14, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. It's like 4 of us there, along with a dude who was in his late 20s going into his 30s. He was a grown man. And so I pulled my pistol and I see the younger ones looking at my gun. I'm cutting. They like, nah. Because they not ready for that kind of violence. But I'm already participating in that. When I'm living up in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, like my homies, they getting killed. This is what we doing up here. We into that violence. And so you stay long enough, it'll always come back to you. And I intentionally stayed long enough, and when dude brought the argument back to me, I killed him.
So I want to touch real quick on how dangerous, and this is something that I kind of preach to younger guys on a regular basis, how dangerous your ego could be.
Mm.
Because and I'm sure with age comes wisdom. So the older you get, just like myself, I sit back and I'm like, man, I was dumb as fuck. Like, man, that play was stupid. I got a bunch of the block boys one time out of Warren going up in the house. We got caught at a dope house. I knew the layout and where everything was set it up, and I thought it was that same thing. It was my ego. I had already kind of made some moves and done some things, and I'm like, oh, like I got this. Like I'm a hardcore motherfucker. You know, like I'm a professional dumbass is what I was.
Absolutely.
But I talk to these guys, man, and I'm like, as far as the youth goes, I'm sure you run into it all the time, working in re-entry and things like that, and with everything you're doing. You get these hard-headed kids in that don't understand if they would just set their ego aside, set that I gotta be the biggest, baddest dude, just to the side and take a step back and look at what they were doing. I mean,
yeah. So I think as for you and as for me, somebody pulled me to the side, said, "Man, something in you, man. Like you got something on you," and I hear it.
yeah,
But it didn't mean nothing to me because I didn't believe that in myself.
yeah,
So I had to learn. Sometimes the only way you can be taught is get spanked. You know what I mean? So I had to get spanked. And some of these young dudes, me like it or not, gonna have to get spanked.
yeah.
That's the only way they're gonna learn. I try to get them to understand that spanking goes different ways.
Yeah.
That spanking can put you where you ain't no more, or that spanking can put you where you ain't no more. Because you think because you in the penitentiary you still existing, you ain't existing out here. All your talents, all your gifts are going to be shared in there. I done seen some of the coldest basketball players, football players, workout guys, all that be in the penitentiary and spend 15, 20, all their prime in there sharing their gift with somebody that can't take it nowhere else but with them.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell them youngsters. You know, I tell them, like, hey, man, the reality is you're going to make the decision. You're going to make the choice. But I'm going to tell you some of the things I experienced and then some of the things I witnessed. Because I ain't just going in there and trying to do my bit. I went in there and participated in politics. That's why I was in 9 different prisons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I stayed in the politics. So when I'm talking to these youngsters, I'm talking to them from a place that I know the politics of the streets. I know the politics of the prison system. I ain't just out here running in Family Dollar stealing no underwear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I ain't got in the case because I wasn't a criminal.
See, that's one thing that's one thing I'm extremely thankful for is I only had to serve 2 years. So I never had to get involved in the politics. I had 2 years, just enough time to keep your head down, stay out the way, nobody really know who you are, be cool with everybody. People going in like yourself, man, to get those stretches. I totally understand like why guys join gangs, why guys get into the shit they get in, because that's your life. Like and being in there even for 2 years, I see it. It's a struggle to survive.
Oh, yeah.
You stay paying that body that you need every month. You know what I mean. You're set up for failure from the start. You're either like, so I 100% understand it, but I am so incredibly thankful that I only got the 2 years and it was enough. It was enough of a spanking for me.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
be like, no, fuck this, I'm done.
Absolutely, man. You got some people that get it. Like you went in there, hey, man, I'm gonna keep my head down, get my body together, and I'm gonna get my mind right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, especially as an addict, you're in the sickest state of your mind. Your mind is so sick.
Yep.
Right? So once your mind starts to heal, you get the clarity in your thoughts and clarity in your vision allows you to set yourself right. The 2 years is good. For some people, sometimes it's longer, you know what I mean? It takes more. It took a lot for me because I did 15 and went back. You know what I mean? So it took a lot for me to really get it, to get out of the addiction. See, the addiction extended past the drug was the byproduct.
Yeah.
The drug was the byproduct of growing up, how I grew up, seeing the stuff I seen, boom, 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 okay. Now I'm in prison. Man, I got to do all this time. I'm trying to find some way to get away from it, right?
Yeah.
Past it. But when I woke up from that, what I realized was this ain't gonna pass. I got to do this. But I stepped into other addictions. Now I'm addicted to the politics.
I was gonna say that's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah. So when they call us, when they say you institutionalized,
Yeah.
right? It's not being that I want somebody to govern me and I want to be in this cell with another 200-something pound man that we got a toilet right next to our heads and we got to put up sheets to doo-doo and, no. It's the running and the adrenaline of the politics, the gang activity, who doing this, who bringing the dope in, who got this, or they rocking with them rollers, or got to bust his head and all that. It's time for a demonstration when you can take 40 dudes and go up in the block and, hey man, wake up.
Yeah.
It's an addiction to that.
Oh yeah.
Movement and all that.
Hey man, power and prestige and things like that, they are just as addictive and just as damaging as having a heroin addiction or coke, crack addiction.
Absolutely.
Or I've seen great guys get in positions of management, get in positions of whatever, and it goes straight to their head, and they fail miserably immediately. But then they get that little bit of a taste. I mean, we can sit here and talk police. Police get that little bit of power. I'm not against police at all. I understand they have a job. There's good and there's bad. You see these bad ones out there. They get that little bit of taste of power. The kid that got bullied in high school, and now they're a straight up asshole to everybody they have contact with.
Absolutely.
But it's all, yeah, man. And I think that's a big disconnect too. People don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of society looks at addiction as alcoholism, tobacco, drugs, sex. But I mean, you've got everything on the back end where you've got money, you've got power, you've got control. Like all that shit, it all boils into the same pot. So, okay, so you do your time in Marion, and I heard you say what was Marion like? I mean, was it that's a level 2, correct?
So, exactly. So, Marion is level 2. I went into Marion in 1993. In 93. I called my case in 92. I was in the institution by the beginning of 93. I was going to Marion. When I first went to Marion was a transition. So, it was close. It was close.
Okay.
It was transitioning to level 2. So, when I went in there, man, my first day pulling up.
Wait, so Marion was walls when you were there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why Marion has cell blocks.
Okay. I've never been.
Okay. So Marion is a division of dorms and cell blocks.
Okay.
So you got one half of Marion is all cell blocks and one half of Marion is dorms.
Okay.
So that's how Marion is constructed. Marion was a level 3 in the 90s and transitioned to a level 2. So they had some of the blocks that were still level 3. They were trying to move them out and stuff like that. It would transition in Marion at the time. Because what I think what happened at the time in the 90s was a lot of communities started calling DRC out on what level people they said they would have in their communities. Ross probably went flipped like a joint like Ross probably has flipped from medium and close probably at least 6 or 7 times from the 90s to now. It would be medium and then it would flip close and then it would be medium and flip close according to the community. So Marion was flipping when I first got there, so it was just going into open movement. And Marion is nothing but a big hallway. It's an indoor joint, so it's just a big hallway. And I remember first pulling up in the Grey Goose, they have an infirmary in the back where the R&D is. And the first thing I wake up, I'm riding in. I'm happy to be with a dude that just did 10 years, and he's coming back. So we cuffed together. I'm going with a brother named Lay Rhymes, my guy. So we pulling up, and when we pull up, the first thing I see is what I think is a woman in the window. And I'm looking, and I'm like, man, it's a lady in the window. So all the dudes that's young, that's
Thirst trap.
first coming into the penitentiary,
Yeah.
we like, oh shit, we all trying to look. A dude later on who was a veteran and been there, he said, hey, youngster, that ain't no woman. That's a man. Oh, this is my very first experience. I ain't including Lorraine. Lorraine had this thing, and I was down during the riot and all that, and being in the holder was my first experience with being in isolation and all that when I was in Lorraine. But going into the penitentiary, yeah, that was the first thing that I experienced was, this is the penitentiary, man, and it's a dude in here, full trickery.
I know.
Full trickery.
I know.
You know, when I say trickery, it's because you take young dudes from the streets, you drop the age over where you can send them to an adult prison. You send the young dudes at 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. Some of these dudes ain't never had sex.
Right.
They just been in the streets. They upbringing had them cut different.
Yeah.
They selling, they shooting, now they in the prison system for adults. And you got a man that's been in here tricking people, images, symbolism. But now you got young dudes that's getting turned out or turning themselves out in the 90s. It was heavy because it's all illusion. And that's what the system is. Once you trapped in there, if you ever try to write yourself, it's a shame that you carrying out because you 16 years old and this is wild.
I never understood why they hand out adult sentences to juveniles. Only in the aspect of, I mean, it's proven your brain isn't done maturing until you're in your 20s. Yeah. So at that point, you're throwing 16, 17, 18-year-old kids in there, and it blows my mind, man, because then that's what you have accustomed them to. That's how they've grown up. That's what they think. That's what their brain associates with the norm.
Absolutely.
You know.
And that circles back to the work we're doing, like with strategic intervention for youth in crisis. It's that place that you catch them coming out to juvenile centers, or you catch them being who they being, and kind of start to take that leadership that's there and turn it to a good thing. It's good. You know, leadership is leadership. It's just good and bad leadership.
Yeah.
And it's teaching them that leadership that you have right now that's leading your homies to graves and the prison, that's bad leadership. Let me show you how to change that leadership. Same thing, but use it in a good way.
Yeah.
Because when right now, they don't mind. They setting these young dudes up to be bonded over, right? That's one of the fights that we're trying to fight, is that discretionary bond over, because I believe the same way you believe. And also just like you got adults, the system is so messed up. Like you'll got a spot like Indian River where you'll have a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old, and he in there with a 21-year-old who has been there since he was 13, right? And who do you think he looking to get advice as his OG to teach him something? Is a dude that had been there since he was 13, but he's 20 now, and you think he's grown.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, studies have shown that if he went in there when he was 13, 14, and he's 21 now, that man's still 13 years old.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so what happens is our young people are going in, and instead of being in with other young people that age and developing and having cognitive developers come in there and really teach them thought process and how to move and how to grow and skills that you need to survive when you get on the streets. They just throw them all in the system. And so now you got a 21-year-old that has grown up in the system. Who do you think this 13-year-old going to look to, because what you teach in society of is a grown person.
Yeah.
So this is the OG, but he is 13. He can't teach you anything. So when they come out, they don't know no better.
Yeah.
They caught between, it's a weird system that they got. You an SYO, but you an adult. You on juvenile parole, but you're 18. So you catch a case, you're going to give you an adult case, but we can also bring you back to juvenile court and charge you. Come on, man, it don't even make no sense.
There's so much in the criminal justice, especially now that I've started doing the podcast. There's so many things and stories that I've heard of just you're automatically set up for failure. So if there's, I mean, any advice I can give to anybody, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to put a color on it, especially young black men.
Mm-hmm.
I, you're set up for failure from the start, and you don't understand the best way to stay out of it is to never get into it. I mean, and I know that's hard to say because especially for somebody like myself, who I mean, I had a good upbringing. I was, you know what I mean. But you look at how a lot of these guys are raised, and I mean, I've always been a social guy. So even in the joint, I mean, I know what questions. Obviously, I'm not going to say a conversation, but I mean, I'd sit back and talk to some of these guys just to be like, hey, like, where are you from? And it's all the same thing, man. It's take the dad out of the home. It's ruin the neighborhood, ruin the community, pump it full of drugs, and fucking fill the prisons. Dude.
Systematic. So if I'm in it, so my main point now is especially for a man coming home and young dudes that before they get to the system is to understand that we are a commodity. Right. That's first and foremost. Yeah. I always explain to them, I got 21 years in the system in totality. Right, from the time I was 15 years old to the time my last time in the system, I think was 43. Right, from 15 to 43, I've had some dealing with inside prison system, and so what I try to teach young dudes is that in that point in time, I have sent several hundred children to college. I have sent several hundred children on vacation. If you ask me if I got college money for my own children, I have to tell you resoundingly no. Right?
Right.
I can't send my own kids to college, but I sent all these other kids to college because I kept putting myself in the penitentiary system that paid somebody to keep me, to govern me.
Yeah.
Put jobs in the community that was dying.
Yeah.
Helping on their system, bring more state money into their county that didn't have anything. Now you go through that county, it's a Walmart, it's a hotel, it's a restaurant, it's a parking lot, this stuff. I did that. And so what I try to teach them is that, bro, you're going to always be a pauper while somebody else is getting rich off of you.
Yeah.
If you don't understand that this is just bigger than being out here committing crime. You know what I mean? So that's really what I try to get people to understand is more than you going in here and you going in here and you taking yourself outside of society. You can't do nothing for your family, but you doing everything for somebody else's family. Man. You take care of somebody.
Right.
So who are you going to make the choice of who you want to really take care of?
Right.
That comes down to you. All this comes down to us. At some point in time, I said, I'm through going into prison. And I stood on it.
Yeah.
And that's why I stand here today. You know what I mean? At some point in time. It couldn't have been my mama because I came home and I was with my mama. It couldn't have been my children because I had children when I came home. They were brand new babies. But I still was in the streets.
Well, let's talk about something you just said real quick. Me for myself, and I'll just the people who listen to this have already heard the story because it's my coming to Jesus moment. Mm-hmm. I was in visitation. It was the first visitation I got to see my kids. I'm gonna spit it real quick because, like I said, everybody else heard it. My little girl. It was time for visits to be over. We didn't do the county visits because my mother was bringing them up, and they didn't want to do the through the glass shit. So first visit to visit, they call visit. You get your hugs in, so I stand up. I hug my son, hug my daughter. She puts her arms around my neck and starts screaming, bro. Kicking, screaming, Daddy, I want you to come home. Dad, why can't you come home with us? My son went like nonverbal for almost the rest of the time. Well, the rest of the time I was like, he wasn't really nonverbal, but he shut down. Mm-hmm. That was my moment. You know, that was the moment. And I had the idea when I was going in that I was going to change, but that was like that was the moment of clarity where I was like, I'm not doing this shit. So that being said, I think most guys come home and have a change of heart decide to stay on the straight and narrow, to make change, whatever. They have one of those moments.
Mhm.
What was your moment?
So what's so crazy is that um, when I caught my case, my moments was coming while I was on the streets. It's before I went back to the penitentiary. I came home from doing 15 years. I'm on the streets, but I'm in the gang.
Yeah.
And I catch a pistol case in Pennsylvania. And we fighting this case. I fought the case for 2 years. So I'm out on bond for like 2 years. The first year I was out on bond, I still had to be in the streets. Right? But I got a mind state of saying the one thing I don't want to do is put a case on top of a case. Now I never moved in a space that we was allowed to just be catching cases. I'm messing with a dude that's really moving. I'm a pistol dude. So I ain't out at the clubs. I don't do none of that because I'm here for a job.
Yeah.
If you get around my guy and it's wrong, it's gonna be outcome. So that's what my job was. So I wasn't really worried about putting a case on top of a case. But what started coming to fruition was I'm about to go do 4 years. I got 2 little girls that's out here that I'm not spending no time with. Now I'm getting some money to make sure that the household is cool and that they got some shoes on their feet and everything is good on that tip. But I'm about to go to prison. I need to spend some time with my kids. So one day I called my dude who I've been hustling with. I said, hey man, I think it's time. You know, I got about, I don't know how long fighting this case. So last part of this fighting this case, I just want to spend time with my daughters, right? So he said, you done with the streets? I said, man, I just told you, man, I got this case, man. I know he making sure the lawyers paid everything is good. I said, but yeah, I can't be on the road like that no more, man. I gotta make sure my daughters at least gotta understand who their dad is. Oh, all right. That was the last time I talked to that man. We ain't never talked again.
Well, yeah, because if you're not serving your purpose,
So that's when I understood the streets is transactional.
yeah.
No matter if we get in shootouts together, no matter how much I tell you I got love for you, when we not doing the same thing, we not the same people.
Right.
And understanding that started that change. That was that aha moment. But for me, it was cumulative. It wasn't no Jesus brought it, right?
Yeah.
It was little things. I started going to church before I went back in, spending more time with my kids. I started going to church. But I used to go to church in rebellion. I'm coming in all black, hooded up, khakis up, koofies on, high, smelling like, I'm coming in like that. So I'm looking. We're going to say, we don't want you up in here. But I never got denied at this church I was going to. And I got to say, I was going, my kid's mother introduced me to a church called Saints of Mighty. Had a white, I don't know what the Catholic people call it, Father Flager. And I've been to black churches, black pastors, all that, I never nobody really.
White Pentecostal's wild, bro.
This Catholic. And so you was really going to Catholic, but he didn't run his, he ran a Catholic church like it was a Baptist church.
Yeah.
Because he was in a black community. But when I went to his basement, it was a big painting. And that big painting was a black Jesus. So I'm confused.
Right.
Because I'm in a Catholic church with a white father and a black Jesus. I got to see what this dude is about. And the first time I went to a service, he had 3 active gang members. He didn't say nothing. He spoke a little bit, said the word, and let them speak what was happening in the streets.
Yeah.
How they was trying to change. And that's how I started to go to the church. Because I found that place where, this white dude is for real.
Yeah.
And he in the hood. He told the CBS, if y'all don't hire no people from this community, we'll shut this down. When you dealing with, I start seeing those actions. That started creating that activism that's in me now. Seeing this white pastor that didn't have no reason.
Right.
our situation is not privy to him. But he made his business. He ain't tried to shine like a savior. Sometimes come in and be, I'm saving this community. He utilized what he had, his position, to help people get in position. So I had to respect it. And so that's where that started to happen. Then I got to the penitentiary and I realized that I didn't want to go by my old street name. People were still calling me that. Now my name is Lamarr. Started introducing myself. For 20-something, almost 30 years, I was going by one name. Some people tell you they don't even know my real name. Yeah. And I started doing so. I started seeing these little changes in me. But I think the one that pushed it over the edge is I was talking to my kid's mother. It was right before Christmas. And she said, yeah, I had to sit down with the kids and kind of let the kids know that Christmas ain't going to be till I get my income tax check. Man, that killed me. That killed me, man. I looked at myself. That's when I tell people, you look at yourself in the mirror. When you really be honest with yourself, you're going to say some stuff that you ain't going to like. Yeah. And I looked in that mirror and I said, you is a piss poor father. You talking about you was getting money. Let's talk about you getting money. I had that comment. Let's talk about you getting money. I said, I remember one time you got 30,000. How much did you give to your kids and your kids' mom? Oh, you gave 5,000? Come on, let's be real about what you was and what you was doing.
One of the realest moments I've ever had with myself have been nose to nose in a meeting. Mm-hmm. Going back through all my bullshit. Yeah. And I'll even tell you, I mean, even to this day, because even to this day, sitting in the truck, being real with yourself. Yeah. You'll grow more from just admitting your bullshit and trying to figure out why, what, who, where. Absolutely. Than you ever will going to see a counselor or.
You gotta challenge yourself. Yeah. I think what happens is, in order to perpetuate any lie, that lie has to be first told to you. Yeah. Because I can't convince you if I'm not convinced. So I have to lie to myself first before I can start lying out loud. Yeah. Right? And so usually the first person you gotta tell the truth to is you. You know what I mean? And so I tell my truth to myself, and then I challenge myself whether I'm gonna stand on that truth or not. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because all the time, I love integrity. That's one of my favorite things is to have integrity. But my integrity at times, even now as I change, be lopsided.
Well, yeah, because you're always fighting with the old you. And for people that don't understand, a lot of people think just telling a lie is telling a lie. Mm-hmm. They don't understand. So I don't know if you follow him. His name's Dr. Jordan Peterson. Mm-mm. He does a lot. And there's actually a couple guys, Gary Braca, there's multiple people who have researched, neuroscientists that have researched when you tell a lie, what it's actually doing in your brain. Mm-hmm. And it's redirecting synapses and like rewiring your brain to where there's actually physical damage that you're doing to yourself when you are lying and you become a perpetual liar, and then you start to believe those lies, and then it's because me growing up, I was a liar. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly sit back and see it's affected and I don't lie shit like I'm going out to I don't go out and mess with other females. I don't do drugs anymore. It's stupid shit. A couple of years ago that her and I used to get into, my wife and I used to get into all the time. She'd be like, what are you doing this afternoon? I'd be like, I don't know, I'm going to go down to AutoZone. But I was actually going, I don't know, to the gym or something else. But it was like that, or it's just stupid little lies like that. But it was out of habit. And she's never been a liar. So it was always this big item of contention of, why would you lie about that? That's stupid. Why would you lie about that? And I'm like, I really it just came out of my fucking mouth. Right. Right. People need to understand that's not a good habit. It's a very easy habit to get into. Absolutely. It's not a good habit to get into.
I always tell people a story about being in prison. I was in Lebanon, and I'm working. I never relied on my family. You know what I mean? Initially, when I first started my bid, one thing my mom was consistent with, she made sure I had clothes by every quarter. That was her consistency. I never really asked my mom for no money and things of that nature. But once I got into my bit, I figured out how to survive in the penitentiary. I ate off the land. And so, but in dealing in any kind of situation that's like that, dude, I love when people like to be like, I'm real, 100%. And I said, well, then you ain't a good criminal, right?
Right.
You ain't no real criminal, dog. Every criminal gonna bust a move on somebody. Somebody gonna fall victim because that's what we do. And so I'm working at this time. I got a couple pen pals I'm working. I got a couple situations I got going on, making sure I got money coming in and stuff. And I had got to the point where I didn't want to call home anymore because I didn't know what was true and what wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to call my mom and start talking about something, be like, send me $30. I need to go. And I got $200-300 on the books already from somebody at work. And so I would kind of have brief conversations with my mom. It wasn't in depth. I tried to stay away from a lot of subjects because I told my mom, I never wanted to be using, working or lying to. And at that point in time in my bit, I just didn't know whether I was doing that or not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man.
No, it's serious. You almost get this feeling of just you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
It's you could literally look in the mirror. And I've been. It's a scary. It's a sad feeling to have.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I always tell people, man, I made it through 15 years as a passenger in my own car. I was in Smiley's car for 15 years, for more than that.
On autopilot.
Lamarr was on autopilot. Smiley man controlled everything that took part in my life. You know what I mean? Because Smiley was that character that, he gone.
Yeah.
My mom didn't teach me that, so I could never really be Lamarr in those circumstances. Because that's not how my family raised me. That's not what my grandparents instilled in me, right? So I could never really be him. I had to be Smiley in order to survive. I had to be able to go to that place that Lamarr wasn't taught and trained to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like all that stuff starts to play in where we get to the point where we fast forward to this point where 3 years ago, I say 3 to 4 years ago, I was like, man, my mental health is messed up, right? It's things in me I don't understand that's going on in my head. I've never been debriefed about my time in the prison system. It's never been broken down. Me and you can talk because we've been there, so we'll just have casual conversation, but it's not about growing and really understanding why I think and why I process that. And I said, well, if that's happening to me, it's probably happening to a bunch. It's probably happening to a lot of my brothers and sisters.
Well,
It's done time and it's come out. I don't care if you did 1 hour. What leads you to that place? And what happens in that place that you don't get to talk about or get debriefed about?
Yep.
And once I got there, that's when I started to understand I needed therapy and started investing in the mental health side of reentry. Like, I don't care if I get you the greatest job and you make $50 an hour, right? And you got the best car, Rolls Royce, and you got the most beautiful house. And we all provided it for you, right? Because you're coming home, you're going to lose it.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Because if you're not working on those things, even just prison rules, a lot of dudes don't know how to separate from the prison rules. I've been living by these rules 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Don't sit on my bed. Don't sit up by the head of my bed. Flush the toilet when you pee. Da-da-da. You know, these is rules and standards that you
fucked up inside. Yeah.
That you right.
You bring them home
and then you bring them home. So everybody knows that if you talk to a man in a prison, it's called arm length.
Yeah.
Unless we really, really cool, bro, talk to me from here, bro. Because if once you're in my arm length, you in firing range.
Yeah.
So, and you come home, people don't respect boundaries of space like you do when you're in prison. So some dudes have a tendency when they're in the grocery store to be offended because the old lady, she's standing behind the clothes. You see, you get that PTSD kicking in. So yeah, you gotta teach that, hey, we somewhere else. If you want to participate in this is what you got. We don't have no soft social skills.
I think
a lot of those things.
That's one of the, and that's another point of contention with me with our whole criminal justice system. There is no reform. It's you're in there and it's you literally you get thrown in a box, whether it be a compound, whether it be a cell block, whether it be a camp. You're thrown in a cage, a box, whatever it is, for an extended period of time. You have to adapt to that setting, to those surroundings to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody talks about what it's going to be like when you come home. Nobody talks about the hurdles you're going to have to jump to find a job, all that shit. And then you bring all that bullshit home with you, put it in, and compound it on top, and you're set up for failure from the start. And that's why, I mean, you guys work on me in the podcast and stuff like this. I mean, when we were talking before the show. But it's also giving people an outlet to understand. You know, I think people need to understand they're not alone out there with these feelings. I'm not big in AA or NA or any of that. I have always kind of adapted a mindset of whole self change. You learn to love yourself. You learn to love other people. You learn to have conversations with yourself in the mirror, nose to nose. Work through your bullshit. Understand why you did that. Understand that that person may be you, but it's not you. You know. And I think there's more growth that comes from that. And then at a certain point, that addictive, that want to go pick a substance up or go commit a crime or anything, it'll start subsiding. I mean, that's my personal experience.
So it's funny. 3 points. Commodity. That's why it's no reform.
Yeah.
When we spoke about that, your commodity.
Yeah.
You're a moneymaker to a system. It's counterproductive for the system to change that, right?
Yeah.
So why would I give you information, inform you, help you?
They don't have one. Right. Yeah, they don't have a want to change it because they're in state business run by private.
Right. So commodity, that's number one. The second part is when you come home and all that stuff is on your back, collateral sanctions, right? That thing that we don't learn when we in the court and they saying, I sentenced you to 15 years. They don't say, I sentenced you to 15 years in the lifetime of collateral sanctions. They don't say that to you. They just say, I sentenced you to 15 years. So you feel like, hey, I did every day, 15, all summer, all hour. Gave it exactly to them. I should be able to come to society and do what I need to do, right? But then you realize that I am a felon. Maybe they just ain't gonna let me live here. Maybe you take it on yourself to believe that it's supposed to be something that you have. No, the courts didn't issue you that for what you did. So you shouldn't have to have that. That's why BFO exists, so we can fight that, because it's something that collectively, if we come together, which they already banking on us not doing that.
Yeah.
They already banking on us being in survival mode and not thinking about how these things change.
But there's even community sanctions on that. You and me being convicted felons, technically, I don't know what the stipulations are as far as being in contact. I know when you're on like probation.
Parole. A lot of times on parole.
Yeah. But I mean, you got all these guys coming home with 10. I just did a podcast with a girl. She got 30 years probation when she got out of her sentence. She did I think it was 10 years down in Florida or some shit. Got 30 years probation on the back end of it. So at that point, I can't go down there. I mean, I'm a convicted felon. I would love to go to Florida and do a podcast, but now you're setting people up. I mean, they don't want you. They don't want you to be around each other, and it's not for really the reasons that a lot of people probably think. Like you and I are going to link up and go round the back.
Right. So that's another thing, right? That's what we're fighting, right? The useless rules that are in place. It's rules that are in place for those who commit certain crimes, right?
Yeah.
That should be in place. But it's general rules that's in place for everybody that commits crimes that shouldn't be in place.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be denied any level of education if I've done my prison time, my parole time, probation time. If I've given you all of that, right, and I'm shown to be productive enough to even get into college, right, I should be able to go get whatever education I want and receive the licensure for that education. Because what somebody will tell you is that, oh, you won't, every day, they let everybody go to college, they won't deny you. Well, if you're a drug dealer, they'll deny you certain grants, which is access, right? Now, they might do, they won't do that to your case, yeah, but they probably won't. But guess what? I want to be a psychiatrist. And guess what they'll tell me at the end of that? You got your degree, but you can't get your license. So don't play those games. Yeah. You know, somebody will try to tell us how we have an opportunity until they get the real truth of it.
Yeah. And it trickles over way. Yeah. I mean, it's stupid stuff. So me being in the trucking industry, the girl that I did the podcast with, she's a freight broker. Me as a convicted felon, I can't get licensed and bonded as a broker. As a felon, I can work under her license.
But you can't. Ain't that crazy?
But I can't get licensed or bonded as far as being a convicted felon.
Are you in a trucking union?
Yeah.
You know you can't be the president.
Oh no, I'm not in the trucking union.
Oh, but if you're in the trucking union, if you're in any kind of union,
you can't be the president.
Can't be the president, secretary, vice president. Yeah. But you could be in that union for 30 years paying dues. Right? You keep that union afloat. And that's what happens to a lot of us, right? We can get in a position that we can live good. You know, I ain't gonna deny that, you know, God has blessed some doors to be open to me that ain't open to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? But we shouldn't have to live on exceptions.
No.
We should be able to live in a space that everybody has an opportunity. If you choose not to take that opportunity, that be on you. But that opportunity is there for you to take. You an exception. I'm an exception. But for the every 10 of us, there's 1,000 that's not. And we have to figure out how they get to be involved in society. But like I tell my people, we can't be asking them to be in society and then be antisocial at the same time. So you can't be asking them to be in society and then don't register to vote. Yeah. Don't count yourself on the census. You can't do that. And so that's what I really try to teach us. Is that we telling them we want housing, we want jobs, we want this removed, we want that removed, but you ain't a registered voter. Or you're a registered voter, but you don't go down there and vote, which is all the same. Like, we got to deal with the realities. Our people, convicted felons, you know, felony impacted people. Because we asking somebody else to ally with us.
Yeah.
For a fight that we don't even want to put no skin in.
Right.
Can't do that.
No.
You know what that's? It's about educating and being educated on what affects us. The things that we're not told. Why case managers ain't telling me what reentry programs are available, where I can go, what kind of jobs are available for my county? Why wouldn't the case manager tell me that when I'm in the prison system? Because that case manager starts to be out of work if that block don't fill up. Right? If they can't fill up F block in Lebanon and they'll close F block down, that means whatever case manager and unit manager and the officers, they can move around. Them case managers and unit managers, we don't have enough case and we don't have enough units to put you in. You don't have a job. It's counterproductive for me to tell that dude to get out and get right.
Right.
That's the one I lost.
No, it's a vicious cycle, man. And it always has been, and unfortunately, that's why you and Shantae and Monica and all you guys caught my eye because of the stuff that you're doing over here. And that's the
BFO stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you? So let's talk about real quick. You said something about. I'm gonna backtrack like that chapter real quick because you said something about you were in Lorraine during the riot.
Yeah.
So what was that like being in there? Because I don't remember. You're the first one here. So what was that? And then I'm gonna jump in.
It was crazy. It was crazy because I think the riot happened on a weekday or somewhere, right? And when you in the rain, we finally make it to the movement.
Yeah. So
we in movement, and it's morning time, and you wake up at the same time every morning, and the doors ain't open. And now it's 11 o'clock. And you know, at time, now you see all the dudes in their doors looking at the clock. Yeah. And you start hearing boom, boom, boom. We ain't got no breakfast yet. Why we ain't went to breakfast? And that's 11:30. We don't know it's a riot in Lucasville. We just locked down. About 12, we start hearing it. Man, it's a ride.
Yeah.
It's a ride.
What year was that?
93, April. April of 93.
That was wild, man.
Yeah, it was crazy because my dumb butt ended up cussing the roller out that night, not realizing that you go to hold during the riot and you just said something to a roller. You're not getting out the
No.
I don't know, and the roller come, I tell you already, I turn the radio down, get the fuck away from my door, sucker. They came back fully suited and booted. Man put me in a hole. I think I did 2 months in a hole, almost 3 months in a hole. Because, I had to stay in there. And when the riot was happening, the start, how the unit sergeant would come see you and either give you something to let you out. And the riot's going on, so they're like, nah, we don't cut you loose. And then they changed their mind and put me on local control because I threatened the roller.
Yeah.
During the time, so that's how I spent the ride in the hole, man. Just hearing about it, it was crazy, but the after effects of it started to show up around 95 and 96.
I was going to say, well, there was a lot of changes made because there were CEOs that were killed down there. And there was
one CO got killed and a lot of inmates got killed. Yeah, a lot of inmates got killed. A lot of snitches, dudes had personal vendettas with. Like, that's really what that, and the whole concept, I always be real. I'm never afraid to speak because the same thing I say is the same thing I said all around is that, they didn't have an agenda. They, respect to my Muslim brothers, but they asked for stuff that they could eventually have gotten.
Yeah.
Prayer rugs, prayer beads, incense that was put into the commissary, which actually ended up killing the hustle of a lot of Muslim brothers that were living off the underground hustle and selling them oils and stuff. But now they sell them in the commissary because dudes start saying, well, I got to buy it from you and I can buy it out the commissary. So all these things took place, but what they killed how we ate. I think this is what you see now with the introduction of Airmark and all that. Something about when that happened, man. Ohio fed itself. They had the cow, they had the farms, they had the dairy farm, they had the slaughter farms, they had the garden in London. They fed themselves. I remember them bringing the halves of cows in the butcher shops, and dudes was learning trades. Muslims want different eats. They wanted to change. They changed it. They started bringing them soy burgers. They started taking the peanut butter and jelly in the book. So all that, right, it shut down a lot of camps. A lot of camps started going north side, south side. It just changed so much, man. I think we didn't understand the residual effects of doing something like that and not having nothing to really ask for. Nobody pushed to have more vocationals brought into the prison system to say, hey, man, we ain't getting no vocationals in here. We're not getting the opportunity to learn or change anything. Y'all taking any book that has any strength of teaching us anything outside of the boundaries, y'all put them on the ban list and we allowing it. Yeah. Can't read nothing. You're not bringing nothing educational in. We didn't even recognize that. Yeah. And so that's where the problem lies with the riot for me, is that it was something that was put together that wasn't executed thoroughly, thought out thoroughly, and then a bunch of them dudes told on each other, sold each other out, got sent down to Colorado and Texas and all that because they were snitching and telling on everybody. That riot was a waste of time.
So no, I remember I was young. I was in middle school when that happened. I think maybe in elementary school when that happened. But yeah, it was very uncoordinated.
Yeah.
That's all we need.
You experienced it when you probably did your first number. Everything that was in place then.
Yeah.
Was the.
Well, you brought up the programs, and I don't think programs were ever fully brought back then after that, because I think programs were more or less brought back for a show to the public that we can still state that we are reforming inmates.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the history since Lucasville, there has never been an adequate amount of programs for inmates. Trades kind of got kicked out the door.
Absolutely.
I remember just to get, and then even when I got to Lake Erie is when CCA took over. Lake Erie was the first the project prison for CCA of America because they ran mostly federal or all federal prisons across the United States up to that point. Not all of them, but that's what David Nitch was in. And then they took over CCA as the first state.
Mm-hmm.
And I very clearly remember I had buddies that wanted to get into Kent State, and they axed Kent State out of there as soon as CCA took over. Mm-hmm. They axed all the programs, but they left like select little things open so they could still say, no, we had programs. And I always thought that was gross, but CCA is fuck CCA.
A lot of that stuff is wild, but that's why I love the fact of being able to be on the other side and be able to build with brothers like you that understand the politics of it, right? That is deeper, and we are also understanding that if you have worked with people, that all our people ain't gonna get it, and that's okay. That's why certain of us are put in place to be stopgates to make sure that we push it, no matter if our people get it or not. The ones that ain't caught up will catch up. Right.
Yeah.
But those who know how to run should be running, and so that's why I'm happy about being on this side of it to start to help us understand that it's legislative things that we can change collectively. We need to start looking at ourselves as a voting bloc. We need to start being more social if we ask for society to stand with us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let me mark this and we'll be all. Had to take a quick break from our sponsors, Gatorade, obviously, keeping us going. So let's get into talk about the programs that you're involved in. I want to focus on kind of what you're doing for the community.
Okay.
What you guys are doing over in Summit County.
Okay.
So let's so you're the re-entry director for South Street.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. So when I first came home, I was trying to figure out how to stay out. My cousin had just come home after doing 7 years. He had got hooked up with a job through an organization called South Street Ministries. But in order to get to South Street Ministries, this is what I thought back then. We didn't know. But it was a format. We thought it was a format. You had to go to Umadop, meet Sean Bonner. Sean Bonner had to run you through, and then he would suggest that you go to South Street. Before I knew that you could just walk into South Street, right? You didn't have to go through all that. You didn't need nobody else's little bandit. I didn't know that, but this is the route my cousin went. I just want to stay home.
Right.
I got one goal when I came home. I didn't know what kind of job I was going to have, where I was going to work. I don't have no skills. You know what I mean? I did a little roofing before I went back there, so I'm going to figure out something. I just want to stay out the penitentiary. That's the only plan I have. So, make a long story short, I go to Umadop, I meet Sean Bonner, but you got to go through what's called an assessment, which now I start to learn that a lot of these programs, in order to get their money, get their numbers, they have to run these assessments, they got to put you on their account, all of that stuff.
Yeah, right? It's all for grant writing, shit like that.
It's all for grant writing. I go to this place, they run me through a 2-hour assessment. From that 2-hour assessment, they tell me, they didn't give me no link to a job or no link to nothing. They tell me, come back and see us next Friday. I said to myself as I left there, I'm talking to my aunt. She said, what happened? You got to go there and get a job. So I said, these people told me, come back next Friday. I ain't like, but I'm going to come back next Friday. Now, I went back next Friday, and they had another person to do another assessment. So, the guy's doing the assessment, he said, the middle assessment, his name was Mr. Beasley, rest in heaven, man. Good brother. He said, hey, man, you ain't even supposed to be in this program, man. I'm going to send you down to South Street. They got some resources down there. The same thing that the lady could have did when she assessed me. This man who been in the streets, who was a drug addict, used his street intuition to say, you don't need to go through this part. You need to just go down there. And when he sent me down there, it was being ran by my brother now, Donovan Harris, he was like one of the first dudes to come home and be in the forefront of the reentry in Summit County. He created what's called the reentry meeting that we have every Tuesday at 4 o'clock at South Street Ministries. Like he created what reentry had to look like from a basic understanding of transportation, housing, clothing. How do we help you get back on your feet? And we have this meeting where we bring resources so you'll know what jobs are available. So that was what the meeting was when I first got there. And me and him got cool because he had brought a couple businessmen in. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the hell is these dudes talking about? It's like 4 of us here, man. This meeting is like, what's going on? So I go tell them, I said, hey, brother, you run this? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, why you got these dudes talking to us, man? I ain't never been through what we've been through like this dude. He like, right now, people don't understand the importance of what's going on in reentry. And so I got to pull it back a little bit and let them see that they don't know, and we do. So he was showing something.
Yeah.
Next time they had a meeting, he said, hey, this your meeting now. That was 7 years ago. He gave me an opportunity. He seen something in me, seen that I was fired up about learning, that I was coming, and I was continuously showing up. And so he said, hey, man, I want you to come do this meeting every Tuesday. That wasn't on my radar. I didn't know what I had going on. I was working at J&R Wheels. I'm just trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? And he introduced me to the space. And from that space, I started, understand, like, we have to tell these people what we need. And a lot of times we let them dictate to us what we need. And that's why recidivism rate is like this. Yeah. This is why we're not being healed. This is why we're not prospering. Because we're not sharing the language with each other about how we heal. How did he get there? How did he stay out 20 years?
Yeah.
That kind of thing wasn't happening. And when I came in that space, I started calling out programs that I considered to be fake. Programs that would take 90 days of my life and not give me nothing in return.
Yep.
Programs that was eating off my pain, my misery, my suffering, and was asking me to give up my work time, all of that, so that they could continue to pay somebody that don't know about my life, don't understand my struggles, to be in position to be my case manager and tell me and send me to resources that wasn't even activated or working, send me to jobs that say they're felon friendly but turn me down at the door. That was happening. And so we tried to make sure bro was infusing us in that space to be able to be the ones that call that out and change that. That's why when Shantae got up here, I had to let her, whatever they say they're doing in Canton, too many Canton people calling them to actively get help.
Yeah.
So they couldn't be doing it. And Shantae had sat under me and Donovan, and she had learned, and she had understood, and she had a passion and love for the people. So when she came up here, it was easy for her to
I love Shantae, man. She got
start figuring out how to work up here and how to make it effective so our people are being helped, healed, and benefited, and not somebody else eating off our pain and utilizing us with our knowledge, but not compensating us for our knowledge.
Yeah. It's funny because I would rather sit back all day long. I've been in substance abuse programs probably more than I even could count at this point. Seen mental health specialists, things like that. Head case managers, therapists, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned more throughout my years being locked up, talking to old school guys, talking to people who've been through the system and made it out, talking to drug addicts who stayed clean. Mm-hmm. I don't even have to be in a program. Mm-hmm. All I need to do is and I got a group of guys I could call at the drop of a hat. Some of my best friends are still in doors of AA or groups of AA and A. I'm not. Don't need to be. I get more out of talking to guys such as yourself, people like Shantae, my buddies that I have, than I ever got out of somebody that's just trying to put me as a statistic on a piece of paper to do a study on it, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's why I've always loved this reentry thing. I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know it was a thing until I caught wind of Shantae and Monica, and I started watching their videos. That's how I initially got wind of you because of the bus you guys were taking down. I saw this fired up big dude pacing in the middle of the bus, just talking shit. And I'm like, I like that dude's energy, man. And you know, Shantae, she's got such a big heart, man. So I'm glad to see. I mean, as far because she's Stark County, right? You're Stark
Yes,
County.
Stark County. Yes.
So I love seeing that the two people I've gotten to have Summit County on, or I've gotten to have you on a Summit. I've gotten to have her Stark.
Absolutely.
And it makes sense,
Absolutely.
you know. And I think the community should be very grateful for having you guys in that.
Oh man, I'm grateful to the community.
Yeah.
I mean, like I always say, like the one thing about like we were talking about the man in the mirror, right? That knows the nose. When you find yourself in a position that you facilitate and you talk to our people, like that's what I do every Tuesday. Is I facilitate these meetings, and I have to hold myself to some kind of accountability when I'm in front of this. So I'm nose to nose with myself when I'm talking to my people, and I always tell them that this is cathartic for me. This is my therapy. To be able to be honest with judgment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Be honest with judgment and be accountable for my shit. You know what I mean? Even as I walk to be an example and make right choices and better decisions, I'm still got some things. I'm still trying to file down some bad habits. And they show themselves. And having that space to be able to go and say, man, my bad habit showed itself. I was out here chasing. I found myself up in the spot at 3 a.m. trying to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that look and that knowing that, and I got to be accountable to y'all. And I ask y'all to be accountable to yourself, but also be accountable to the community.
Well, and that's the other thing. Being in a position such as yourself, you don't want to let those guys down. And there's also another level of healing that comes with the point when you get to being able to help other people, because then it's almost like I don't want to call it a hurdle, because it's not a hurdle, but it's almost like a wall that you've put up. Like I'm gonna have to, if I knock that wall down, it's gonna take a lot to rebuild it.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
So there's a whole there's it's multi-layered all the way through. And when you get to that point where you're helping the community,
absolutely.
You know, it does so much for yourself as well.
Oh man, absolutely, absolutely. And I always tell people too, though, we can hide with that too.
Yeah.
You know, we'll help the community while we're killing ourselves. I always do want our people to know that it starts with you first.
Yeah.
Before you can love somebody else, you must love yourself. Before you can help somebody else, you must help yourself. Yeah. If you really want to be a servant to the community, first learn to forgive and serve yourself.
Yeah.
Once you do those things, you'll be an outstanding service to the community, an outstanding person to the community once you grab those principles. A lot of times we think that if we save the community, somehow we have saved ourselves and changed our karma, but we still hurting and dying.
And that shit right there, I will tell you. So I've been home going on 12 years at this point, right? I met my wife about 9 years ago. In those 9 years, the last 2 years is when I've actually learned to love and help and take time for myself. And 2 years ago, I damn near blew up. Did you see that shit? There's a bunch of balloons that just came up on the. That was wild. No, on the feed. That was weird. I'll have to figure out what the hell that was. 2 years ago, I damn near blew up my marriage, blew up my career, blew up everything because I never. In those years that I've been home, I thought, well, like you just said, if I'm helping the community, if I'm helping my kids, if I'm doing everything for everybody else, and that shit compounds over time. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, you got a 10-ton brick on your back, and you don't know how to handle it. And I had a straight fucking melt. I relapsed. Mm-hmm. I went on a bender for like 3 weeks. Almost lost my wife. I ended up having to quit my job because I caused so much damage where I was at. Mm-hmm. And I'm so thankful for that woman only because she's always put herself first. Mm. And she tried to carry me for those 7-8 years that we were together before. And then at that point, when everything crumbled for me, she said, "You need to love yourself, or I'm out." So the last 2 years, I got in the truck and just like it's the man in the mirror. And I get to look out that front mirror every night and sit with myself, sit with my thoughts, sit with my demons, and figure out why the fuck I think like I think. What, and it has been the best change I have ever made in my life. And I get emotional over it because I kick myself in the ass. 'Cause I'm like, if I would have taken the time 10, 12 years ago,
we didn't know about it.
no, we didn't. And I don't beat myself up over it, but it's one of those. I'm like, man, I wish I would have
been so much easier.
I could have been so much easier, man. We could have been like
That's
that.
hey, you know what though? That grind is what makes us even better in the position we are right now.
Well, you can't have shiny days without dark days.
Man. I was thinking the same thing. I've been home 7 years. The last 4 years is the time I started investing in my mental health, investing in myself, investing in my integrity, investing in how it's supposed to look for me. And it ain't always been good, right? But I've been learning and getting better every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it took, I've been home 7 years. So the first 3 years I was in this no zone. I think 2019, man, I was, like you just said, I was back in after hour spots. I'm going every weekend. I'm staying out to 3, 4 in the morning, right? And I had found myself standing in one of the after hour spots in Cleveland called the Omens Biker Spot. And I'm standing in there, man, and you get these outside of yourself moments. And I'm standing in this after hour spot, but I'm outside of myself looking at myself. And I'm questioning my presence there. Like, what are you bringing to this environment? You know what you bring into that environment when you stand in front of them brothers and sisters and you helping them. You don't have anything more to bring to this environment. You have given this environment everything that you were supposed to give to it.
Yeah.
And I realized at that moment that wasn't a setting, scene, or space for me anymore. And I stepped out that space, and I ain't been back in that space. But I had to go back into that space. My man said when I went back to the penitentiary, got a dude named David Bush. We chopping up, and he said, tell him about my journey to get back there. And he said, God to bring you back to a place you remember. I'm like, I had to go back. I didn't learn from the 15 years. I lived in 15 years. I was a kid. So I just grew up in that environment.
Yeah.
I just grew up without women. You know what I mean? I grew up in a violent environment, but I just grew up in an environment. And then I came home and I was able to be a man for a short amount of time. But what showed up, showed up. When I went back to the penitentiary, I was a man that had a family and children and different principles. So I was able to learn this time and make a decision for myself and stand on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And stand on it and come now, be at this place right now where a brother introduced me to a podcast because he feels that my story may be important. Man, that's a 360.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah.
I love my life's gotten so it's just exponentially better since being able to look back, reflect, stare back, and dude, for a long time. Speaking of going back to the man in the mirror, for the longest time, man, even after I came home for a little bit, all that shame that you bring home, I wouldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I mean, there was times I'd walk in and it's just I'm staring at my chest in the mirror. It's. I was in a program one time and somebody said, you're doing okay when you can finally stare yourself in the eyes in the mirror and be able to sit there and stare at yourself for a couple minutes. And most people look away if they're not working on themselves. So no, it's a blessing, man. So let's get into chapter. What's this be the chapter development that you guys are doing down in Columbus? Because that's one of the things I really wanted to touch on.
Okay, so that's BFO. So at the point in time when we were doing that, and you seen the bus ride and everything, but we were putting something together for May the 19th, which has passed already, but it was the Felony Impact and Liberation Movement, and what it was there to do is first of all show solidarity between us, the faith community, and friends and family, right? Hey, man, we can stand together. We need to be standing together as we got educated on the things that affect us as men and women coming home out of incarceration, rehab, homelessness, anything. And a lot of us have those felony misdemeanors, right? And so what we wanted to do is educate people on collateral sanctions, how they affect you, where you live at, how you get educated, and how you work. Why those things exist. But we also want to introduce things like how do you get legislation passed, right? What does it look like to get something on the ballot, to get voted on? And so what we've been talking about now is what's called the GROW Act, which will introduce the Clean Slate Initiative. So the GROW Act for Ohio is trying to get Ohioans working. And so the GROW Act is this thing that some people in the House and Senate have introduced, some are against, some are for, that if they remove, with the Clean Slate Initiative, remove threes under discretion on down to all the misdemeanors, that once you come out, those things are sealed. So you're not asked about them. You can't question about it. You can absolutely say no on a application and all that. You can say no because those things are sealed. It will open the door for 1.7 million workers to go into industries. I think Ohio's trying to bring industries back into Ohio. Yeah. In order to bring industries back into Ohio, you have to have workers. Yeah. So it's a win-win for everybody, totally. And so now what we're trying to do is get independent business owners and the faith community to kind of give a commitment to say, hey, this is something that we would like to see happen.
And we'll stand behind it.
And we'll stand behind it, right? And so that's what we're trying to do now. That's the level that we're at now. The beginning level, what you've seen on the bus was activating the community, activating those who have felons, activating those who have misdemeanors, telling them why they should be trying to bring their mothers, fathers, cousins, brothers, sisters, and their homies to the table to stand with us in solidarity. Those that are going to church, why you need to tell your pastor about it, why you need to bring the pastor. Those who are entrepreneurs that, found another way to get some money, why they got to put it under their mamas and their wives' names because they're felons. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking. Hey man, it affects us. If you're a business owner and you can't put your name on the paper,
it's fun to speak on jobs real quick. So I was actually an operations manager before I got into trucking. My felony stopped me from finding another job. That was the job that I blew up.
Mm-hmm.
I loved hiring felons at that place because 9 out of 10 of them have been put through the ringer and can't find a job. Mm-hmm. So they'll work harder than most of the guys that have options. It gave me an opportunity to mentor to a lot of. There was guys I was taking with their licenses. I was taking, you know what I mean? Like, and it gave me, just like what you're doing, it almost gave me an outlet to kind of give back. But then I ended up on the other side of that too. I ended up, it was packaging industry. I ended up on a side where I'm looking for jobs as a production manager, production supervisor, warehouse manager, warehouse supervisor, all this safety manager. Nobody will hire me because that's a position that's not for felons. What's wild is I think I got 3 jobs, big companies. I mean, when I was at Advanced Poly, I had about 180 indirect reports and 5 direct reports, which were all my supervisors in 2 locations. And I worked my way up from sales all the way into that position. 7 years I was there. And then I would go on these interviews, and it would be, we think you're great, you're awesome. And I don't bring shit up because I'm selling myself. And that's something I want to tell everybody too. Like, you're trying to get a job. You sell yourself, and then you got to make the decision on the back end once they slide that piece of paper that you're going to have to make a background check. Mm-hmm. If they don't slide that paper, you're good because they never asked you about it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, man, all 3 times. I came right with them. I was like, look, man, like, this is what I've been doing. They don't want to hear it. So, and it's been rental applications. So me being on the other side of that, and then talking to you, Shantae, Monica,
Mhm.
and seeing you guys going down there and trying to change legislation for all that. That's it's important, man. None of this shit should be a life sentence, and that's what it is at this point. People
Absolutely.
don't understand. It's with another real quick story that I'm going to get back into this with you. When her and I first started looking for a home, before we had money to buy a house, we were living in a little shitbox apartment. We showed up, found a nice big. All my kids were at home at that point, so we had 3 kids living with us at that point. Now we only had one part time. Um, found this huge house. I think it was out in Uniontown. Go in, meet the woman. We're talking. I've been home 2 years at that, 3 years at that point. We're talking. She's like, "Oh, I love you guys. You guys are a beautiful family. Like this would be perfect for you." Blah blah blah. She hands us the application, and then there's a, "Have you ever been convicted of a felony?" Well, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? That's my family's gonna be living in that house. I'm not gonna lie about it at this point. So I pulled her aside and I said, "Hey, look, I did a couple of years for burglary. Like, I ain't never done anything since."
And this neighborhood.
Yeah, and she immediately, "Oh, we don't rent to felons." And I'll tell you, it didn't bother me because I've been told no enough in my life, and shit like that don't bother me. But I remember my wife's got master's degrees. She's got, you know what I mean? She's never partied. She's never, like, she's a by the book, plays it by the rules, plays it safe kind of girl. And I remember she got back in my car, man, and she sat down, and she was, no, you could just see, like, the hurt on her face. And she looked at me and she said, she was like, "Fuck this." She was like, "I'm never going to let anybody say you can or can't rent a fucking house, have a job, none of that shit." She was like, "We're going to stay where we're at. We'll save our money and buy a fucking house." Um, but yeah, man, it's a life sentence.
It's a life
And
sentence.
it's sad, dude. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to be put in a position where I met a great woman. Where if we start a business, which we've been looking at some things, if there's ever a point where something needs to be put in her name, she's a rider. I could do that. There's a lot of people who don't have moms that will help them out, or maybe they burn those bridges, or
Absolutely.
so you're just setting people up for failure, like permanently.
Permanently. So that's why we're geared up, man. June the 12th, they're having a come together about collateral sanctions on the Senate stairs and House stairs in Columbus.
Are you guys going down there for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're I got to find out the logistics, but we're trying to put some together so people can get up there. I don't know if we have a bus. We pushed all the money and the plate in the middle for this May 19th move.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part of it. It just takes so much ingenuity, man, to try to get us moving and get us gathered and together because we are disenfranchised people on a whole nother level because this is a melting pot. This ain't specific. It ain't. This is rich people, poor people, black, white, transgender. Everybody is involved in this thing because it's 850 felonies that's available to people in Ohio. That means there's 850 ways that you can catch a felony. So you'll run across people that got felonies that they don't talk about it because of the stigma that's attached to it. And that's what we're trying to alleviate, that stigma, that feeling of, hey, because we have to come together for this fight. Because if we win this, the next step is the ones and the twos and, and further up. But if we win this, we put in 1 million plus people back to work with an opportunity to change their lives, circumstances, and their families' circumstances. Which, once that happens, guess what? The community where the junkies run up and down streets, the dudes on the blocks, and they shooting, those start to change.
Yeah.
Because those are those people.
Yeah.
And now they got an opportunity. I just cleaned my life up. I'm cutting my grass. I'm getting, hey, man, cut your grass, bro.
Yeah.
Don't be doing that. Don't throw that in front of my house, man. You become that person.
Yeah.
And then your neighbor becomes that person. And your community becomes that community. And it's a trickle down effect of just eliminating barriers.
Yep. Value yourself, you got then you value community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the only way to do that is hope.
Yeah.
If I got hope, So if you eliminate these barriers, at least I know I got an opportunity. There's some jobs I may not get because I ain't qualified for, but at least let me do it because I ain't qualified.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how much you like me and how much I can fit that position, and then I tell you, hey man, I jaywalked 5 times and I gotta, and you say, oh, we can't take the jaywalkers. Don't do that. I either fit it or I don't.
Yeah.
You either need me or you don't. I respect the fact that you say, no, you don't have enough education. You know, we need somebody that has a master's degree, you guys have a bachelor's, you don't have enough experience. We need somebody that have 10 years more of experience. That's fair.
Yeah.
To tell me, because when I was 18 years old, I robbed a store, and I've been home for 10 years, paying the taxes and doing everything. Now I can't be a production manager.
Well, and that's something that should have never been that should never have come to fruition to begin with. I've said since day one, if you have served your time and come home, I have not had a seatbelt ticket. My driving record is the cleanest fucking record I got. Man. I got my CDL, I got all that, but it's been 10. I don't know the exact date. I think it's been 12 years since I've been home. Nothing on my record. Why do I still have to disclose it? Why am I still carrying that on my?
Why am I still carrying that stigma? Why?
Yeah.
And that's why I've taken to refusing, even in the rooms, refusing to label myself as an ex, a re, or anything.
Yeah.
I'm a citizen.
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with that. Sean Tate jumped me for that because I kept using the term ex-convict or ex-felon, felon, whatever. And you guys have a term for it. What's it?
So they say restored citizens or returning citizens.
Yeah.
But I don't even use that no more.
But I will tell you, a lot of my social media, I think you and I are friends on Facebook.
Okay.
I post a lot to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I post a lot of cool shit that I'm doing. I post stuff about my kids constantly. Because my community counted me down and out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I get on and scream from the rooftops. I'm an ex-felon.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm a felon. I'm an ex-convict. You know what I mean? Because the transparency, like you and I were talking about earlier, I want to be as transparent as possible with people, and I want to be relatable. I want people to understand. You know, like I said, my whole community counted me down and out. I was the guy. Everybody that I've talked to since being that old guy has said, we would never see that happen in a million years. Like you threw everybody a fucking loop on that. But I did it. I talk about it openly. I will tell you all the dumbest, darkest, most idiotic shit that I've done in my life, and I don't care. But I'm also very open about how great my life is.
Absolutely, I got you. I think over the last, I'll say it's probably been in the span about 6 months to a year, right? It's really understanding like how things have manifested in my life because of language. I understand.
And you're right.
Language.
Yeah.
So for me, it's nothing hidden.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always tell you, like, people ask me why I don't Beijing, right? Why you on Beijing? I say, because first of all, they didn't think I would have this. It wasn't written for me to have these gray hairs.
Yeah.
It wasn't written for me to make it here. I was supposed to be dead at 19, 20.
Yeah.
Right? I was supposed to be dead, wiped out, never to see the, that's how people really envision me.
Yeah. And
so to be here is a proud moment, so I keep it. But I used to stand on the returning system like to show, hey man, I've been there, I should back. Then I started saying that at some point in time, I have to be released from those chains too.
Yeah.
Right? How do I release myself from those chains? And I just start thinking about language. You know, that kind of language where we say, I'm resilient, right? Every time I fall down, I get back up. And I kept hearing that. And I said, that's a defeatist language.
Yeah.
Why am I still falling? Why do I got to keep getting back up?
Yeah.
Why I got to be resilient? It's something like this. Why is that the language? Because it becomes the cop out.
Yeah.
I took time off, lapsed a little bit. I fell off, but I'm back.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I 100% agree with what you're saying. I'm a firm believer in speaking things into the universe and vibes and vibrations, things like that. And you're right. You hit the nail on the head when you start speaking things, just like the whole lying thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you start speaking that,
Yes.
it rewires yourself. I've got a good friend. His name's Drifter. He hasn't come on here yet, but he was in some shit. He's another truck driver. Met him out on the road. He actually founded Sobertown podcast.
Okay.
He teaches a course on their platform called Rewired. And it's exactly what you were just saying. It's speaking, and when you start speaking positively, and I think that's where a lot of, like, in recovery, the daily affirmations come from. Because dude, if I don't do my daily affirmations, that's one thing that I still take with me to this day. If I don't tell myself when I wake up how great my life is and everything I'm thankful for, I have shit that it's like clockwork.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's just like the whole lying thing. You start speaking things in a certain way, your brain, you're only ever using, I think it's like 3% of your brain at one time.
Yeah.
But your brain's still working, doing shit. So, no, you're absolutely right.
I just want to say something about, we were talking about recovery.
Yeah.
And you were saying something about recovery, about how you do recovery. And I'm an IOP facilitator.
Right.
And one of the things I bring into that room of recovery is the separation of program and people.
Yeah.
IOP is a program. Let's never mistake that. That program is built to function a certain kind of way. Books, done. But it's the people that care that makes it the most important thing. It's the people that care. And so when I go into the rooms, I try to get people to understand that you gotta care for your recovery more than you think the program care for your recovery.
Right.
Because the program is gonna do what the program is meant to do. You're gonna see people relapse sitting in the chair right next to you. And guess what the program will do? Cycle them back through.
Yeah.
Because the program is run based off insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, and all that.
Yeah, the program.
So what I started teaching them is that language piece, that piece of, if you make your recovery simply in the room sponsored, you are going to relapse before you know it. You must make your recovery a lifestyle. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You live the lifestyle of recovery. You have made it your lifestyle. Drugs and all that other stuff is not an option in your lifestyle.
Right.
And that's what I try to get them to understand. The programming is the one of the tools. You should be in therapy. If you relapse because somebody died in your family, you need to be in grief counseling. If you relapse because you got an anger problem, that means you need to be in anger medicine along with. You have to bring all the tools you can to create what's called the recovery lifestyle.
Yeah.
You have to make it. I don't think about prison. I don't think about returning to prison. I don't think about breaking the laws because I recreated a lifestyle. I'm just living. Every day I wake up, I have my gratitude and affirmation of who I am. And I live life helping people, serving people, but also recognizing when I need self-care and service to myself.
Absolutely.
It's just my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I try to get people to get the tools, because a lot of them are in the beginning of recovery.
Well, I think come home. I obviously was mandated to go to meetings. You know, I got when I came out of prison, I had to do 3 months in NeoCap,
Okay.
which was fucking wild because that's like in lieu of treatment center. But I'll tell you what, as pissed as I was going to it, I'm thankful I went because it gave me the tools like thinking for change. All those programs they taught me there. Where it sucked going from being on the yard, being able to work out, to being in a fucking lockdown all day. But you know what? Whatever. I got through it. It sucked. I got through it. But it gave me tools to be able to sit back, reflect, understand, and think about things. That's where it all was. There's a guy, I can't think of his name, he's on TikTok. He's a big AA guy, but he preaches whole self change. And I've always, like I said, I don't do the AA. I don't do the NA. I know what the book says. I know what you're supposed to do. I know you're supposed to, I know gratitude. I know accountability. I know all that. You know what I mean? I'm too busy living my life now, and I have a good life, and I can recognize it, and I know what I should and shouldn't do.
And you gotta, and like I said, once you got them right, affirmations, all that, you don't look at them as the same as a person that's in the initial stage of recovery, as if this is the really recovery tool, right? I need this tool, or I need your sponsor, right? You're living,
Yeah.
right? You're living life. You still affirm yourself, right?
Oh yeah.
Still got gratitude for your family, your life, right? It's natural.
Yeah.
It's not nothing that you're thinking about. It's not nothing I have to announce, right? I don't have to announce that I need serenity, right? I don't have to announce that. I have to live that, right? So my friend, one of my friends in suicide prevention, one of my friends just killed himself. So, you know, and love to him. I don't want to, but love to him. But when that happened, because I've known him since he was 11, when that happened, I was confused. I was off. Me and my daughter went to the flower garden, the nature center, looked at the water. I watched her be happy.
Yeah.
That helped me reset myself, prep and prepare myself for the next day, understanding that life is still happening.
Yeah.
And whatever good me and my bro had, that's still there.
Yeah.
Those memories are still there. And for him, I got to be my best and move on. Stepping back, feeling like I need to take a drink or get high or do something that's out the way because that happened, that won't be what he wanted.
No.
And so it's being able to, if I had not been able to go and understand that I needed that from the tools that I got from thinking from change, boom, 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 that I needed to fall back, reset myself. Nature can reset you. Water, walking, exercise, all these things can be, whatever it is you music, whatever it is you do, reset yourself. Find your gratitude again.
Absolutely.
And so just having all those tools that's now just implemented into my lifestyle, it helps me stay focused on what I'm trying to accomplish and where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that's why I really, really preach that. Do the rooms, get all the tools. Always be stepping into the alternatives of what the recovery lifestyle looks like. What else are you doing?
Yeah.
When you leave the room, what's your hobby? Right? What are you thinking about yourself when you ain't surrounded by the community?
Yeah.
Are you still carrying stigmas and unforgiveness and shame when you step in rooms that people don't get high in? How do you clear yourself from that? A lot of times before we got to the drugs, some of us was already liars.
Yeah.
Some of us are already stealing. Some of us are already doing, you know what I mean? So before we even, the drug is a byproduct to whatever trauma that you ain't dealing with. You got to go back.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they get into rehab, they deal with one issue, the drug. It's the only issue that you're trained and programmed to deal with. So you never dealt with that your dad wasn't at home a lot.
Yeah.
And you resented it. But you never said nothing.
Right.
So you never dealt with that. Guess what? That's still there.
Yeah.
So when somebody rejects you, doesn't give you attention, you feel it's easy to fall back and relapse.
Yeah.
Because you ain't trained yourself about what that looked like. And so that's what I try to teach. Hey man, think about that stuff prior to the byproduct. Think about that stuff prior to the byproduct. Because that's the stuff that you're going to have to heal and work on in order to understand why you keep going to the byproduct.
And I'll tell you, man, I think that's a big misconception that a lot of people, you probably run into it constantly teaching IOP. They get so hyper focused and fixated on, I just need to stop the drugs and I just need to stay clean. And they don't understand if they would just start dealing with their I'll be honest. I'll call her out. I don't care. I know my ex-wife watches the show. My ex-wife is a prime example of this. She was a beautiful girl. Had both my kids with her. But she had a lot of trauma growing up. A lot of trauma boiled over into our relationship. And she never dealt with it. So now here you are. You're still 40. You're almost 40 years old, just coming home from prison. You're not accountable. And these are all things I've said. I heard I talk on the phone while I'm on the road. I just call it cut and dry now. I call it what it is. But you've been so fixated on just not doing the drugs and not drinking and not doing the hood rat shit that you never fixed yourself. It's always been everybody else's fault. Yeah. And that's the biggest mistake anybody trying to be better, do better, stay sober can make.
Yeah. So, it's not taught.
No.
It's not taught. But I try to explain in anything. I'm an organizer, so I'm in an organizing space. They have ways of organizing. That's from 50, 60 years ago to the civil rights movement. You can't organize like that.
No.
I don't care what anybody tells you. At least for the community I deal with, you have to have different strategies. It's the same with NA. AA was created in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
We in 2020 something.
And that program has not evolved one bit.
So if you don't think that people have changed, you're talking about a program that existed probably when it was only 3 million people in America.
Yeah.
So as things evolve, you have to evolve. The teaching and the techniques have to change. And they, for some reason, the rooms and the programs, they just refuse. But what I started to understand is the same thing I started to understand about the prison system. Commodity.
Yeah.
Commodity. 2,500, 3,500 for a person to sit in that seat a month. You put 10, 20 of them in the seat continuously.
Yeah.
We're talking money. Not on top of just I put you in ILP, now I'm going to put you in PHP. But guess what? I'm going to put you in these courses without even the end date attached to them. So you may be here for 8 weeks. You may be, so we can go down that rabbit hole of programming, people versus programming. I just think what I'm starting to see is a revolution of people. People are really starting to understand that, first of all, you shouldn't even be in my space telling me about how it looks like to be an addict. You ain't never been an addict.
Yeah.
You educated in substance abuse. You educated in mental. That don't got nothing to be about being here.
Right. You have no life experience.
Y'all over medicating. MAP program is terrible. You over medicating. You allow somebody to come and tell you because you don't guess what you don't got beside you. Somebody with a lived experience, somebody that can tell you you don't need to increase their dosage. You need to actually drop their dosage. They're using you.
Yeah.
They don't want to have nobody next to a clinical person doing that because why? Then they have to start recognizing us and paying us according to how they're supposed to be paying us.
Right.
As lived citizens, as person that lives that life, that has that life experience. They don't want to do that.
Right.
Because a lot of times we come in with just certifications and no degrees. They still trying to push a college education in a space that it don't even work. And that's the problem. That's what we're fighting. You know.
Well, it's nobody, no doctor, no therapist, no mental health professional wants to. It's once they get their degree, they know it. They're an expert, and it's the saddest shit ever. Guys like you and I sit back and listen in these meetings or whatever, and I know you and I collectively probably have more experience, and I've never taught a group of people. I've been a mentor. I've been a manager. I've never taught people. But I promise you and I probably have more combined experience than I'd say 3/4 of all the counselors put together on the face of the earth. You can't teach life experience. You can't teach how to heal a heart when your heart's never seen that shit. So
yeah.
I got you at 1 o'clock. You want to? That's fine. So I will get back with you. Lamarr, I want to first and foremost just say thank you for coming. This is probably one of the. I'm super glad we got to do it face to face.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming down. This is, everybody knows, the first in person interview that I've been able to do in this area with this project. So you have a great story, man. I love what you're doing. Like I said, I saw you pace it back and forth like a silverback on that damn bus, and I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. It just so happened when I never met Shante personally, but when my wife and I were walking through First Friday again, she goes, I got somebody you gotta meet. And I was like, the dude that was walking down the bus line, she said, that was man. But no, man, I appreciate you taking time out to come down here.
No, I appreciate the format, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate you allowing me to express myself and share my thoughts.
No, keep doing what you're doing, man. We didn't really get to touch on being dad and stuff like that, but maybe, like I said, I want to have you back.
Yeah, we gotta come back.
I'll get you maybe a couple of my buddies together. We'll do like a round table and talk about family and how you got back in with the family and shit like that. So, all right, cool. Everybody, thanks for checking us out. Check you on the flip side.
Peace.